At 11:43 p.m. on October 18th, a 911 dispatcher in Cedar Ridge, Colorado received a phone call that should not have existed. The line stayed quiet long enough for her to wonder if the connection had dropped, and then she heard breathing, thin, uneven, like someone trying to stay composed while their body did the opposite. A young woman whispered, "I think I've been murdered." The dispatcher leaned closer, asked for her name, asked where she was, asked if she was safe. The caller didn't answer. A soft, strained exhale, then the line went dead. The system pulled the number automatically. The ping came back to a small rental house on Alder Street, 3 miles from the station. 2 patrol units were dispatched. They arrived 12 minutes later to a house that looked normal in the most unsettling way. Porch light on, curtains half drawn, a faint glow from the kitchen window. The front door was locked, no damage, no sign of forced entry. Through the glass, one officer saw a figure on the kitchen floor. A young woman, not moving. Her name was Lena Morrow. She was 22 years old, and she had been dead for more than 6 hours. The officers entered through the back after confirming a window lock had been left unlatched. They moved room to room with weapons drawn, expecting an intruder, a hostage, something, anything, that explained the impossible phone call. But the home was empty, silent, the kind of quiet that makes your footsteps feel too loud. Lena lay on her side near the kitchen island. One hand was curled under her, the other held her phone, screen dark, as if it had simply finished what it needed to do. No blood sprayed on the walls, no broken plates, no overturned chairs. The scene wasn't messy, it was clean. Too clean. The medical examiner later placed Lena's time of death at approximately 5:20 p.m. Cause: internal bleeding due to blunt force trauma to the back of the head. A single heavy impact delivered from slightly above and behind. One blow, no defensive wounds, no struggle. A strike that came from a direction Lena didn't anticipate. But her phone records showed a 911 call placed at 11:43 p.m., 6 hours after she was supposed to be gone. To understand why this case unraveled so quickly, you have to understand who Lena was, and what changed in the weeks before Alder Street became a dead end on a police map. Lena Morrow moved to Cedar Ridge 4 months earlier to attend the local art college. She studied photography, but not the kind that fills frames with smiling faces and sunsets. Lena photographed empty places, abandoned storefronts, long hallways, dark windows reflecting the person behind the lens. Her friends said she had a talent for making normal rooms feel haunted, like she could capture the moment just before something happens. She lived alone, in a small, 1-story rental at the edge of town. No roommates, no boyfriend in Cedar Ridge, no obvious enemies. She kept mostly to herself. And then slowly, she started telling people the house didn't feel empty. It began with sound. Late in the evening, a slow shifting noise inside the walls, not scratching, not scurrying, not the frantic movement of rodents, shifting, measured, like weight moving from one place to another. Lena reported it to the landlord twice. Maintenance came out. They inspected vents, pipes, insulation. They found nothing, no animal droppings, no openings, no crawl space under the house. The structure was simple, clean, and sealed. But the sound continued. Lena told a classmate she sometimes felt it most in the kitchen. "It's like," she said, "someone is standing right behind me, close enough to feel it, but if I turn, there's never anyone there." A few friends laughed it off. Stress, new place, old house noises. But one friend noticed Lena started doing something strange. She stopped wearing headphones at home. She said she didn't want to miss anything. The day Lena died looked ordinary on paper. Morning class, noon coffee. At 2:15 p.m., a security camera across the street captured her unlocking her front door and stepping inside with a small canvas tote. She paused for a second on the threshold, as if she'd forgotten something. Then, she went in. She never came out. At 3:47 p.m., Lena texted her best friend. "Something is wrong." Her friend replied immediately, "What do you mean? Are you okay?" No answer. At 4:12 p.m., Lena's friend called. No pickup. At 4:30 p.m., she called again. Straight to voicemail. At 5:20 p.m., Lena was struck from behind. No neighbor reported screams. No one saw anyone leave. No forced entry. Just one dull moment, and then silence. When detectives processed the home, they cataloged what was present and what wasn't. Lena's wallet was in her bag, her keys were on the counter, her laptop was open in the living room, photo editing software running as if she'd stepped away mid-task. A half-full glass stood near the sink. A plate sat on the table with the beginnings of a meal. Everything suggested Lena expected to continue her evening, but the most important detail sat in her hand. Forensics pulled the device logs. They found a voicemail recorded at 11:39 p.m., 4 minutes before the 911 call. The file was partially corrupted, but technicians recovered enough audio to make the hair on the back of an investigator's neck rise. It was Lena's voice, breathing hard, whispering, "He's still here, I can hear him." Then a faint sound like fabric brushing against the microphone, and then the file ended. If Lena truly died at 5:20 p.m., then either someone had her phone, or the phone had recorded something after she was gone. Police searched for the obvious explanations first. They dusted for fingerprints, only Lena's. They swabbed surfaces for DNA. Nothing foreign. They checked doors and windows, locked, intact. They inspected the structure. No attic, no basement, no crawl space. There was nowhere a person could hide. And yet a person, or something, had struck Lena from behind. The lead detective, Mark Delaney, returned to one detail again and again: the angle of impact. The blow came from slightly above, not the height of a falling object, not a slip, not an accident. It looked intentional, but there was no second strike, no evidence of restraint, no panic in the room. Just a single hit like someone, or something, only needed one. By day 2, rumors had spread through Cedar Ridge. Some said Lena had a stalker, others said the landlord was hiding something. A few whispered about the house itself. Police kept the case quiet, but the dispatcher's memory of the call wouldn't let it settle. The tone of Lena's voice wasn't a prank. It wasn't theatrical. It sounded like a person trying to report a fact that hadn't fully reached them yet. "I think I've been murdered. Not, I'm being attacked. Not, someone's here." Past tense. 3 days later, the case broke open, and broke apart, at the same time. Lena's phone rang inside an evidence locker. The officer on duty swore it sounded wrong, like a vibration that didn't belong in a room that was supposed to be dead quiet. Phones and evidence were powered down, sealed, logged, and stored. They didn't ring, but Lena's did. The screen lit up, incoming call, from Lena's own number. The officer didn't answer. He watched it ring until it stopped, then immediately called Delaney. A voicemail appeared on the device. When they played it back, the room went still. It was Lena, crying softly. "I didn't make it out," she whispered. The timestamp said it had been recorded seconds earlier. Telecom specialists were brought in. They checked the device's radio logs. They checked nearby cell towers. They checked for spoofing, rerouting, Wi-Fi calls. The conclusion was simple and horrifying. The phone had not connected to any network when the voicemail was created, yet the file existed. Over the next week, the Alder Street house began to behave like a story people didn't want to tell out loud. Neighbors reported lights turning on inside the empty rooms. One woman claimed she saw a silhouette in the kitchen window at midnight, standing perfectly still, as if it were waiting. A man walking his dog said the animal refused to go near the property, pulling away as if the ground itself smelled wrong. Police dismissed most of it as fear feeding fear, until one report landed differently. A maintenance worker named Troy Sykes, one of the men who had inspected the walls weeks earlier, asked to speak to Detective Delaney privately. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept since Lena died. He told Delaney that on the second visit, when he was alone in the kitchen, he heard it too. Not pipes, not settling wood. A slow shifting sound behind the drywall. And then, very faint, very close, something like breathing. He said he put his palm against the wall and felt warmth. Not heat from a pipe, warmth like skin. Delaney stared at him for a long time, then asked the obvious question. "Why didn't you report that?"
Troy swallowed and said, "Because no one would believe me, and because I didn't want it to be true."
That was the moment Delaney requested a full structural inspection, not a search, a teardown. If there was a hidden space, they would find it. If there was a tunnel, they would find it. If there was a person living inside the house, they would find it. They brought in a contractor. Drywall came down, insulation was pulled, wooden studs were exposed, the kitchen wall, Lena's wall, was opened like a wound. And behind it, they found something that made the contractor step back, scratch marks, deep, gouged into the wood, long and uneven, not random, not animal. They ran in clusters, like frantic attempts, as if something had tried, again and again, to carve a way out. Delaney photographed the marks, measured them, and checked the space behind the wall. Nothing. No cavity big enough for a person. No hidden room. Just studs, insulation, and the inside of the house. And those marks. The town wanted an explanation. The department wanted the case to stop bleeding resources. Delaney wanted something that made sense, so he went back to the beginning. He re-interviewed the neighbors. He rechecked the cameras. He returned to Lena's text, "Something is wrong." He returned to the voicemail. "He's still here." And he returned to the phone call. "I think I've been murdered." Then another voicemail appeared. 1 week after Lena's death, the phone, still in evidence, generated a new audio file. No ring, no network, just a new recording. Lena's voice this time sounded calmer, distant, like she was speaking from somewhere that didn't have air. "I can still see the kitchen. I can still feel the floor, but I don't think this is my body anymore. It's dark here, and I'm not alone." A pause. Then, barely audible, she added, "It's behind the wall." The recording ended with a faint sound like slow breathing directly beside the microphone. Delaney played it again, and again. He asked the telecom specialists if it could be faked. They told him, in plain terms, it could not. Not like that. Not without a signal. Not without access. Not without someone physically using the device. And that device had been sealed. The department made a decision that would never appear in any press release. They closed the case. They cited insufficient evidence. They classified parts of the phone analysis. They quietly authorized the destruction of Lena's phone. And they pressured the landlord to sell the property. Within months, the Alder Street house was demolished. The ground was cleared. A vacant lot replaced the kitchen where Lena died. Officially, Lena Morrow died alone. But, in Cedar Ridge, people still talk about Alder Street like it's a place you don't point at. A neighbor swears she still hears slow knocking when the wind dies. A couple says their baby monitor once picked up a faint whisper, "I didn't make it out." And a police officer, long since transferred, admitted that for weeks after the phone was destroyed, the evidence locker's landline would sometimes light up at night with a call that never connected. No number. Just a blank screen, and the soft sound of breathing on the other end. If Lena's call was a glitch, then it was the most precise glitch anyone has ever documented. If it was a prank, then it required technology and access that no one has ever proven existed. And if it was something else, something that still hasn't let go, then that means the last thing Lena tried to do wasn't escape. Because if she could call 911 after she was already dead, then whatever was still in that house was never just in the house, it was listening, and it still is.